They called him just an old veteran. That's what the young volunteers whispered when he walked into the small-town museum, his steps slow, his coat worn thin by years and weather. No one rushed to greet him. No cameras flashed. No one imagined that history itself had just crossed the threshold. The man's name was Thomas Hawley, and for most of his life, he had learned to exist quietly. He stood near the entrance, leaning on his cane, his eyes drifting across the walls. He saw polished photographs of famous generals, bold headlines, and dates everyone remembered. He searched for something familiar, something that acknowledged the years he had given. He found nothing. A teenager handing out brochures finally noticed him. "Sir, the exhibit closes in 30 minutes, she said politely, already half turned away. Thomas nodded. "That's plenty," he replied softly. He moved deeper into the hall, stopping before a large display titled The Turning Point of the War. According to the plaque, victory came because of a last-minute decision made by high command. Thomas stared at the words, his brow tightening. "That's not how it happened," he murmured. No one heard him. Decades earlier, Thomas had been young, strong, and afraid like every other soldier shipped into a conflict the world barely understood. He wasn't famous. He wasn't connected. He was just another name on a list, assigned to a reconnaissance unit that was never supposed to be remembered. Their mission was simple on paper: cross enemy territory, gather intelligence, and return before dawn. In reality, it was nearly impossible. On the third night, everything went wrong. The unit walked straight into an ambush. Radios failed. Maps burned. Men fell. The commanding officer was killed within minutes, leaving chaos where discipline once stood. That was when Thomas did something history forgot. With enemy forces closing in, he crawled through mud and smoke, dragging wounded soldiers out of fire zones one by one. When retreat routes collapsed, he made a decision no one ordered him to make. He rerouted the survivors through a narrow ravine marked as impassable, a path he remembered from a training exercise, recalling how the shadows fell at dusk. It worked. The intelligence they carried reached headquarters. The enemy offensive was intercepted. Thousands of lives were saved in the following weeks. But the official report credited a strategy change at the top. Names like Thomas Hawley were buried under ink and signatures. When the war ended, medals went elsewhere. Thomas went home. Back in the museum, he lowered himself onto a bench, his breathing slow and careful. A group of visitors passed him, discussing the bravery of men whose portraits gleamed under perfect lighting. One man gestured toward the main display. "Hard to imagine what those heroes went through," he said. Thomas smiled faintly. "Yes," he whispered. "Hard to imagine." From his coat pocket he pulled out a small, folded letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink fading. It was a message written decades ago by a soldier he had saved, one of the few who knew the truth. It read, "If I live to see peace, it will be because you chose not to leave us behind." What he didn't know was that someone had been watching. A young historian named Emily Carter had noticed the old man standing too long at the display. She saw the way his eyes lingered, not with admiration, but with memory. When she heard him whisper, "That's not how it happened," she felt compelled to approach him. "Sir," she asked gently, "were you there?" Thomas hesitated. He had learned long ago that silence was easier than correction. But age has a way of loosening the grip of old habits. "Yes," he said simply. Emily sat beside him. "Can you tell me what you remember?" He looked at her, then he began to speak. He didn't dramatize it. He told it exactly as it happened: mud, fear, broken radios, and a choice made in seconds that shaped years. As he spoke, Emily's expression changed from polite interest to stunned disbelief. She excused herself and returned with archived field reports, cross-checking dates, locations, and unit numbers. Every detail matched. Every forgotten line confirmed his story. History had not erased him completely. It had simply stopped looking. Within weeks, the museum exhibit was rewritten. A new panel appeared beneath the turning point of the war. It spoke not of generals alone, but of unnamed soldiers whose actions altered the course of history. At the center was a photograph, an old, grainy image of a young man in uniform, eyes steady despite the chaos behind him. The caption read, "Thomas Hawley, Reconnaissance Unit. His decision saved a mission, a war effort, and countless lives." When the small ceremony was held, Thomas stood quietly as applause filled the room. The same people who once passed him without notice now stood in respect. He didn't lift his chin. He didn't smile for cameras. When asked how it felt to finally be recognized, he answered honestly, I didn't do it to be remembered, he said. I did it because someone had to. They had called him just an old veteran. But his story reminded the world of a truth history often forgets. Not all heroes are celebrated. Not all turning points are recorded. And sometimes the man sitting quietly in the corner is the reason the future exists at all. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire.